It was a gloomy afternoon, and the steady drizzle outside seemed to mirror the mood within the small coffee shop. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the faint hum of conversations and the occasional clinking of cups. Anna, a young waitress with tired eyes and a slight limp in her step, moved quickly from one table to another. Her apron, slightly stained from a long day of work, bore the evidence of her relentless efforts to stay afloat. At first glance, Anna appeared no different from any other worker in the cafe. Yet, there was a fragility in her movements, as though she were carrying more than just the tray of cups balanced in her hands. Underneath her loose uniform, the subtle curve of her belly hinted at the life growing within her. She was pregnant, young and alone, with no one to lean on but herself. As she approached a table by the window, she caught sight of a man who had walked in moments ago. His demeanor was calm, his presence unassuming, yet there was something familiar about him. He sat quietly, a small notebook open in front of him, as though lost in his thoughts. The rain streaked the glass behind him, casting faint shadows across his face. "Good afternoon," Anna greeted him with a polite smile, though her voice betrayed her exhaustion. "What can I get for you?" The man looked up, his piercing eyes meeting hers. There was a warmth in his gaze that made Anna momentarily forget her weariness. "I'll have a black coffee, please," he replied, his voice soft yet steady. As Anna turned to fetch his order, her hand slipped on the counter. A tray of mugs wobbled precariously before crashing to the floor. The loud clatter drew the attention of everyone in the cafe. Anna's cheeks flushed red as she bent down to gather the broken pieces. Before she could fully process what had happened, the man stood up and knelt beside her. "Let me help," he said, his tone kind but firm. Anna looked at him, startled. It wasn't common for customers to assist the staff, especially not someone who carried himself with such quiet confidence. As the man carefully picked up the larger shards of broken ceramic, Anna scrambled to find a dustpan. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the accident, but from embarrassment. She muttered an apology, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry," she said, avoiding his gaze. "I'll clean this up right away." "No need to apologize," the man replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "Accidents happen." Anna glanced at him hesitantly. Most customers would have complained or, at the very least, stared at her with disapproval. But this man seemed genuinely unfazed, almost as if he was more concerned about her than the broken mugs. After the mess was cleaned up, Anna hurried to fetch his coffee, determined to redeem herself. When she returned, she set the cup down carefully, this time ensuring there were no mistakes. "Here you go," she said, managing a small, nervous smile. The man looked up, meeting her eyes again. "Thank you," he said warmly. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "You look like you've had a long day." The comment caught Anna off guard. She wasn't used to customers noticing her, much less showing concern. For a moment, she considered brushing off his remark with a polite response. But something in his tone invited honesty, a rare and unexpected comfort. "It's been a long week," she admitted, her voice soft. The man nodded, as if he understood more than her words revealed. "Take a moment to breathe when you can," he said simply. Anna blinked, unsure how to respond. Before she could say anything, another customer waved her over, and she was pulled back into the demands of her job. As she walked away, the man watched her carefully. Her tired smile and hurried movements spoke volumes. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, something that went beyond the surface of her worn-out demeanor. When Anna glanced back at his table a few minutes later, she noticed him jotting something down in his notebook, a thoughtful expression on his face. She didn't know it then, but that small interaction was the beginning of a series of events that would change her life forever. As the cafe settled back into its usual rhythm, Anna found herself glancing at the man by the window more often than she intended. There was something about his calm demeanor that made him stand out among the bustling patrons. He didn't seem rushed or distracted like most customers. Instead, he quietly sipped his coffee and occasionally scribbled in his notebook, lost in thought. A few moments later, as Anna approached his table to check on him, the man looked up and smiled, a warm, genuine smile that momentarily eased her nerves. "Everything all right with the coffee?" she asked, trying to sound professional despite her lingering embarrassment from earlier. "It's perfect," he replied. Then, after a brief pause, he added, "But you seem to be carrying a lot today. Are you okay?" Anna blinked, caught off guard by his observation. Most people didn't notice her beyond the uniform and the tray she carried. For a second, she debated how much to say. She could brush off his concern with a polite nod and move on, but there was something disarming about his tone. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a small smile. "Just a busy day, that's all." The man didn't press further, respecting her hesitation. "Busy days can be tough," he said instead, his voice thoughtful. "But you're doing great. That much is clear." Anna felt a flicker of warmth at his words. It had been so long since anyone acknowledged her efforts. Before she could respond, another customer called her over, and she had to excuse herself. As the minutes ticked by, Anna couldn't help but notice how the man continued to observe the world around him with quiet curiosity. When the cafe grew less crowded, he motioned her over with a subtle wave. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward his notebook. "I couldn't help but notice how you keep everything running smoothly here. It must take a lot of strength." Anna hesitated, unsure how to respond. "It's just part of the job," she said simply. He nodded as though her answer confirmed something he already suspected. "Sometimes, strength is invisible to the people showing it," he remarked, his words lingering in the air as Anna moved on. The rain had stopped by the time Keanu left the cafe that evening, but his thoughts lingered on Anna. Her tired smile and guarded demeanor had stirred something within him, a curiosity, perhaps even concern. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was fighting a battle far greater than what was visible on the surface. The next day, Keanu found himself drawn back to the cafe. This time, he arrived earlier, hoping to observe the rhythm of the place and learn more about Anna without intruding. He sat at the same table by the window, ordered another black coffee, and quietly watched as she worked. Anna moved with practiced efficiency, her steps brisk but careful. However, Keanu noticed the subtle strain in her movements, the way she occasionally paused to catch her breath or winced slightly when bending down to retrieve something. Her fatigue wasn't just physical, it radiated from her like an invisible weight pressing down on her shoulders. When a moment of calm finally arrived, Anna approached his table. "Back again?" she asked with a faint smile. "Couldn't resist the coffee," Keanu replied lightly, though his tone carried an unspoken sincerity. Anna laughed softly, a sound that seemed rare even to her. "Well, I'm glad you like it." As she turned to leave, Keanu hesitated before speaking. "You know, I meant what I said yesterday. You're doing great here. But, if there's ever anything you need, I hope you have someone to rely on." Anna froze for a split second before nodding. "Thanks," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Then she walked away, clearly reluctant to share more. Later that afternoon, Keanu overheard a conversation that filled in some of the blanks. Anna was on the phone near the counter, speaking in a hushed but urgent tone. "I know, Mom," she said, frustration laced in her voice. "I'll figure it out. The doctor's visit will have to wait until next week. I can't miss another shift, and I don't have enough for the rent yet." Keanu's heart tightened at her words. Her struggles were deeper than he had imagined, and the mention of a doctor's visit suggested health concerns, possibly related to her pregnancy. When Anna ended the call, she rubbed her temples, visibly stressed. Keanu felt a pang of helplessness. He didn't want to overstep, but the idea of doing nothing felt equally wrong. That night, Keanu searched for ways to discreetly help Anna. He reached out to a trusted acquaintance who worked in social services, asking for advice on how to support someone in her situation without invading her privacy. "She's clearly overwhelmed," Keanu explained. "I just want to make her life a little easier, even if she never knows it was me." The friend suggested practical options, paying for her doctor's visit anonymously or helping with her rent. Keanu listened intently, already formulating a plan in his mind. The next day, as Anna returned to work, she found a small envelope tucked under the counter with her name written on it. Inside was enough money to cover her overdue rent and a note that simply read, "For brighter days ahead. You deserve them." Anna stared at the envelope in disbelief. Her first instinct was suspicion. She hadn't told anyone about her struggles, and the generosity felt almost too good to be true. Yet, as she clutched the envelope, a flicker of hope warmed her chest. Keanu watched from his usual spot, careful not to give himself away. When Anna wiped her eyes discreetly and resumed her work with a lighter step, he knew he had made the right decision. The days following the mysterious envelope brought a subtle but noticeable change in Anna. She still worked tirelessly, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes, a lightness to her steps that hadn't been there before. The anonymous act of kindness had not only eased her immediate burden but also given her something she hadn't felt in a long time: relief. Keanu continued to visit the cafe, sitting at his usual spot by the window. He observed Anna from a respectful distance, satisfied to see her spirits lifting, even if just slightly. But as the days passed, he began to notice more of the cracks in her facade. She was stronger than she looked, but strength alone couldn't mend the weight of her struggles. One afternoon, as Anna was cleaning tables during a lull, Keanu overheard her speaking to a colleague. "They won't let me delay the rent payment again," she said quietly. "I'm grateful for what I found last week, but it's only enough to cover part of it. And then there's the doctor's visit." Her words trailed off as she shook her head, forcing a smile. "Anyway, it's fine. I'll figure it out." Keanu's resolve hardened. He couldn't sit idly by knowing how close she was to breaking under the pressure. That evening, he made another discreet call, arranging for her overdue rent to be fully paid without her knowledge. He also contacted a trusted friend in healthcare to anonymously cover her next prenatal appointment. When Anna arrived home the next day, she found an envelope from her landlord in her mailbox. She opened it hesitantly, expecting another stern reminder about overdue rent. Instead, it contained a receipt marked "Paid in full." She stared at the paper, her hands trembling. Who could be doing this for her? The note attached simply read, "Take care of yourself and the little one." At first, Anna thought it might be a mistake, but the reality slowly settled in. Someone out there cared enough to help her, yet chose to remain invisible. It both comforted and unnerved her. Meanwhile, Keanu's acts of kindness didn't stop there. He started leaving small tokens of support: a warm coat discreetly left on a hook near the staff area, a gift card for groceries tucked into her apron pocket, and even a book on motherhood left on her locker with a simple note, "For when you need it." Anna was touched by these gestures, even as she remained puzzled about their origin. The kindness felt like a lifeline, a reassurance that she wasn't alone in her fight. One day, as she folded the gift card into her wallet, her colleague teased her. "Looks like you have a guardian angel." Anna laughed softly, but her heart ached with gratitude. "Maybe I do," she said, her voice tinged with wonder. Little did she know, the man sitting by the window, quietly sipping his coffee and jotting notes in his notebook, was the one who had taken it upon himself to ensure she didn't feel abandoned. Keanu, however, didn't see himself as a savior. To him, these were simple acts, things anyone would do if they had the means. But as he watched Anna from afar, he began to see the ripple effect of his efforts. She smiled more, her laughter became a little more frequent, and the weight on her shoulders seemed to ease, even if only slightly. But Keanu knew that material help wasn't enough. The real challenge was restoring Anna's belief in herself and showing her that she was capable of building a better future, not just for herself, but for her unborn child. The seeds of change had been planted, but Keanu understood that the journey was far from over. It was a particularly busy afternoon at the cafe. The sound of clinking cups, murmured conversations, and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine filled the air. Anna was moving faster than usual, balancing a tray of orders while trying to keep her growing fatigue at bay. The holiday season had brought in more customers than usual, and tensions among the staff were running high. At one corner of the cafe, a man in a sharp suit sat tapping impatiently on his phone. He had been waiting longer than usual for his order, and his growing irritation was palpable. Anna approached him cautiously, carrying his drink with a practiced smile. "Here's your latte, sir," she said, setting the cup down gently. The man barely glanced at her before snapping, "Finally. I've been waiting forever. Is this how you run this place?" Anna flinched at his tone but kept her composure. "I'm very sorry for the delay, sir. It's been a busy day." "I don't want excuses," he interrupted, raising his voice. "Do you even know how to do your job? This is unacceptable." The cafe grew quieter as nearby customers turned their heads. Anna felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. She opened her mouth to apologize again, but her voice faltered. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, and the man's outburst struck a nerve she had been trying to keep buried. Before she could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "That's enough," said Keanu, his tone calm but firm. He had been sitting at his usual spot by the window, quietly observing the scene until now. Rising to his feet, he approached the table, his presence commanding attention. The man in the suit looked up, startled. "Excuse me? Who do you think you are?" "I'm someone who doesn't tolerate people mistreating others," Keanu said evenly. His gaze was steady, and though his words were measured, there was an unmistakable authority in his voice. "She's working hard, doing her best in a crowded cafe. You don't need to yell to get your point across." The man sputtered, clearly taken aback. Well, that's none of your business." "It is when you're causing a scene," Keanu replied. He turned to Anna, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" Anna nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, thank you." The man in the suit scowled, muttering something under his breath before grabbing his drink and storming out. The tension in the cafe dissipated, and a few customers clapped quietly, showing their support. Anna stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. She looked at Keanu, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. Keanu smiled gently. "Of course, I did. No one deserves to be treated like that." For the rest of her shift, Anna couldn't shake the memory of how Keanu had stood up for her. It wasn't just the act itself, it was the way he had done it, with quiet strength and unwavering kindness. She realized then that he wasn't like most of the customers who passed through the cafe. There was something about him, something different. As the day wound down and the cafe emptied, Anna found herself walking over to his table. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Thank you again for earlier. I don't know how to repay your kindness." "You don't need to," Keanu replied with a warm smile. "Sometimes, all we need is someone to remind us that we matter." "And Anna," he paused, as if choosing his words carefully. "You matter more than you realize." His words struck a chord deep within her, and for the first time in a long while, Anna felt seen, not just as a struggling waitress, but as a person worthy of compassion and respect. She walked away that evening with a newfound sense of hope, unaware that Keanu's involvement in her life was only beginning. Later that evening, as the cafe emptied out and the sounds of the bustling day faded into a quiet hum, Anna found herself lingering near Keanu's table. She had planned to simply thank him again for stepping in earlier, but something about his calm, steady presence made her want to share more, something she rarely did with anyone. "Do you mind if I sit for a moment?" she asked hesitantly, holding a cup of tea she had made for herself. "Not at all," Keanu replied, gesturing to the chair across from him. Anna sat down, her hands wrapped around the warm cup, and stared at it for a moment before speaking. "It's been a rough couple of years," she began, her voice soft. "Sometimes, it feels like I've been running a marathon I never signed up for." Keanu didn't interrupt. He simply nodded, silently encouraging her to continue. "I moved here a few years ago, thinking I'd start fresh," Anna explained. "I had dreams, you know. A career in design, maybe even my own little studio someday. But things didn't exactly go as planned." Her lips curled into a faint, bittersweet smile. "I met someone, fell in love. Or at least, I thought I did. He was charming, supportive, everything I thought I wanted. But when I told him I was pregnant," she paused, the weight of the memory pressing down on her. "He disappeared. Just like that. No explanation, no goodbye. Just gone." Keanu's expression softened further, a deep empathy visible in his eyes. "My family's not in the picture much," Anna continued. "My mom's health is fragile, and I've been sending her money every month. She doesn't even know I'm pregnant. I didn't want to worry her." She sighed deeply, as if saying it aloud made the burden feel even heavier. "I took this job to make ends meet, but between rent, groceries, and saving for the baby, it feels like I'm constantly falling behind. Every time I think I'm catching up, something happens, like today." Her voice cracked slightly, but she quickly composed herself. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his tone gentle. "You've been carrying all of this on your own?" Anna nodded. "I don't have a choice. There's no one else to rely on." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet between them wasn't awkward, though, it was filled with understanding. "You're stronger than you think, Anna," Keanu said finally, his voice steady. "Not everyone would be able to handle what you've been through and still show up every day. But you don't have to do it alone. Sometimes, letting people in can make all the difference." Anna looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "It's hard to believe that. Most people don't stick around long enough to care." "I'm not most people," Keanu replied simply. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt a flicker of hope, not just for her future, but for the possibility that she didn't have to face it entirely on her own. As their conversation wound down, Anna realized she had shared more with this quiet, kind stranger in one evening than she had with anyone in years. It scared her, but it also left her feeling lighter, as though the weight of her burdens had lessened, if only slightly. The days that followed their heartfelt conversation were different for Anna. Though her struggles hadn't disappeared, she found herself feeling less isolated. There was a quiet comfort in knowing that someone genuinely cared, even if it was a man she hardly knew. His words, simple yet profound, echoed in her mind whenever doubt crept in, "You don't have to do it alone." Keanu continued his quiet support, but now his gestures carried a more personal touch. He left a small, handwritten note tucked into her apron pocket one morning, "One step at a time. You're doing great." On another occasion, he brought her a beautifully wrapped book titled What to Expect When You're Expecting. Anna smiled for the rest of her shift, her heart warm with gratitude. The impact of these small acts extended beyond material help, they gave Anna the strength to believe in herself again. Inspired by the book, she began to plan more seriously for the baby's arrival. She rearranged her tiny apartment to make space for a crib, budgeting carefully to buy essentials one at a time. For the first time in months, her actions weren't just about surviving but preparing for a future she could look forward to. One afternoon, Keanu walked into the cafe and was surprised to find Anna humming softly as she worked. Her movements were still brisk, but there was a lightness in them now. When she came to his table to deliver his usual black coffee, she smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that caught him off guard. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "For everything." Keanu tilted his head, pretending to misunderstand. "For the coffee?" Anna laughed softly, shaking her head. "You know what I mean. I don't know why you've been so kind to me, but it's made a bigger difference than you probably realize." Keanu's expression softened. "Sometimes, all it takes is one person believing in you to remind you to believe in yourself. But you're the one doing the hard work, Anna. I'm just here to cheer you on." His words stayed with Anna long after their exchange. That evening, as she sat in her tiny apartment folding baby clothes she had picked up secondhand, she realized how much her perspective had shifted. She wasn't just a struggling waitress anymore. She was a mother-to-be, someone capable of creating a better life for her child. A few weeks later, another unexpected opportunity came Anna's way. A regular customer at the cafe, who had always admired Anna's artistic doodles on the coffee cups, approached her with a proposition. "You're really talented," the customer said, holding up one of her hand-drawn designs. "I work for a local design company, and we're looking for someone to help with a few projects. Would you be interested?" Anna was stunned. She had almost forgotten about her passion for design, buried under the weight of her responsibilities. But the thought of doing something she loved, something that could provide more stability for her and the baby, filled her with cautious excitement. "That sounds amazing," she replied, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I'd love to." When Anna shared the news with Keanu the next day, he grinned, his pride evident. "I told you, you're stronger and more talented than you give yourself credit for. This is just the beginning." As Anna's life slowly began to take a turn for the better, she couldn't help but feel grateful, not just for the opportunities and support but for the quiet presence of someone who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. The crisp morning sunlight streamed through the windows of the cafe, casting a golden glow on the bustling scene inside. Anna was in her usual spot behind the counter, preparing orders with an efficiency that had become second nature. She had grown more confident in recent weeks, buoyed by the changes in her life and the steady support from Keanu. As Keanu entered the cafe that day, he noticed Anna's improved demeanor immediately. She greeted him with a bright smile and his usual order already brewing. He nodded in appreciation, taking his seat by the window. However, the peaceful routine of the morning was interrupted when a group of young men entered the cafe, their excited chatter filling the air. One of them froze in his tracks the moment he spotted Keanu, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Wait, is that Keanu Reeves?" he whispered loudly, drawing the attention of his friends. Anna's brow furrowed as she overheard the name. She glanced at Keanu, who had stiffened slightly in his seat, but his calm demeanor remained intact. The young men approached him hesitantly, their excitement barely contained. "Excuse me, sir," one of them said nervously. "Are you Keanu Reeves?" Keanu set down his notebook, offering a small, polite smile. "Yes, that's me." The group erupted into hushed excitement, each of them fumbling to pull out their phones. "We're huge fans. Could we get a photo with you?" Keanu glanced toward Anna, who stood frozen behind the counter, her eyes wide with confusion and recognition. He nodded at the young men. "Sure," he said warmly. As they gathered around him for photos, Anna's mind raced. Keanu Reeves. The Keanu Reeves. How could I not have realized? Once the group of fans left, still buzzing with excitement, Keanu turned his attention back to his coffee. But Anna couldn't stay quiet any longer. She approached his table cautiously, her voice hesitant. "You're Keanu Reeves?" she asked, her tone a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Keanu looked up, his expression unreadable for a moment before he nodded. "I am." Anna sat down across from him, her mind spinning. "All this time, you've been helping me, and I didn't even realize who you were." Why didn't you tell me? Keanu's gaze softened. Because it doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you needed help, and I was in a position to give it. Anna shook her head, still trying to process everything. But you're famous. You have everything. Why would you bother with someone like me? Keanu leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. Anna, being famous or wealthy doesn't exempt me from caring about people. I've had my share of struggles too, and I know how it feels to face them alone. Sometimes, all we need is someone to remind us that we're not invisible. Anna stared at him, her emotions swirling between gratitude, disbelief, and an odd sense of betrayal for not knowing sooner. You didn't have to do any of this, she said quietly. No, I didn't, Keanu admitted. But I wanted to. You've been through so much, and yet, you keep going. That kind of strength deserves to be recognized. The weight of his words settled over Anna, and for the first time, she allowed herself to see him not as a stranger or a famous actor but as a person who had chosen to step into her life when she needed it most. I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice trembling. You don't have to, Keanu replied with a small smile. Just keep believing in yourself, Anna. That's all the thanks I need. As she returned to her duties, Anna felt a newfound respect for the man she had come to know. Keanu's fame didn't define him, it was his kindness and humility that had truly left an impression. Life seemed to be steadily improving for Anna. Her newfound confidence and the opportunities that had come her way were proof that things could change for the better. Yet, as anyone who had faced hardships knew, the path forward was rarely without obstacles. One evening, as Anna was closing up the cafe, the phone in her pocket buzzed persistently. She glanced at the screen to see multiple missed calls from an unknown number. Frowning, she answered, a sinking feeling settling in her stomach. Anna, a strained voice said. It was her landlord. I hate to do this, but I need to let you know that the building's being sold. You'll have to vacate your apartment by the end of next month. The words hit Anna like a punch to the gut. What? No, that can't be right. I've been paying my rent. You can't just. I understand, and I'm sorry, the landlord said. But this decision is out of my hands. The new owner has other plans for the property. The call ended before Anna could process what had just happened. The apartment, though small and humble, had been her sanctuary. It was where she'd prepared for the baby's arrival, where she'd allowed herself to dream of a stable life. And now it was being taken away. She sat down heavily in one of the cafe's chairs, her mind racing. Moving would mean finding another place she could afford, a near impossibility in the city, and the thought of packing, relocating, and paying deposits felt insurmountable. The next morning, Anna arrived at the cafe looking visibly shaken. Keanu, who had come in for his usual coffee, immediately noticed something was wrong. He waited until the cafe quieted down before gently asking, "Is everything all right?" At first, Anna hesitated. She didn't want to seem like she was constantly leaning on him. But when she looked into his kind eyes, the weight of her worries spilled out. "My landlord is selling the building," she explained, her voice trembling. "I have to move out in a month. I don't know where I'll go, and with the baby coming soon, she broke off, her frustration and fear choking her words. Keanu listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "That's a tough situation," he said finally. "But you're not alone in this, Anna. We'll figure it out." Anna blinked at him. "We?" "Yes, we," Keanu said firmly. "You don't have to do this by yourself." Later that day, Keanu made a few calls. His network of friends and resources, built over years of kindness and connections, proved invaluable. By the end of the week, he had a lead on a small apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood. The rent was affordable, and the landlord, a retired teacher, was sympathetic to Anna's situation. When Keanu presented the option to Anna, her first reaction was disbelief. "How do you keep doing this?" she asked, tears brimming in her eyes. "You barely know me, and yet you're helping me more than anyone ever has." Keanu smiled. "Because I believe in you, Anna. And I believe that when people are given the chance, they can achieve amazing things." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of packing and planning. With Keanu's help, Anna managed to move into her new apartment. The space was modest but cozy, with enough room for her and the baby. For the first time in months, Anna felt like she could breathe again. But the final challenge wasn't over yet. On the day Anna moved into her new home, she went into early labor. Panic set in as the contractions started, and she realized she was alone. Without thinking, she called Keanu. "I'll be there," he said immediately. Within minutes, Keanu arrived and rushed Anna to the hospital. He stayed by her side, offering quiet reassurance as the hours dragged on. Though the experience was terrifying, Anna drew strength from his steady presence. When her baby boy was finally born, healthy and strong, Anna looked at Keanu with tears in her eyes. "I don't think I could have done this without you," she said. "You could've," Keanu replied, his voice filled with admiration. "You're stronger than you think." The hospital room was quiet, filled only with the soft, rhythmic breathing of the newborn cradled in Anna's arms. She gazed down at her baby boy, his tiny fingers curling around hers, and felt a wave of emotion that she couldn't quite put into words. For months, she had feared this moment, feared that she wouldn't be ready, that she wouldn't be enough. But now, holding her son, she felt something she hadn't in a long time: hope. Keanu stood by the window, giving Anna space while still being close enough if she needed anything. He watched the gentle morning light stream in, casting a warm glow over the scene. When Anna finally looked up, she met his eyes and smiled, a smile filled with gratitude and something deeper, a newfound sense of purpose. "His name is Lucas," Anna said softly, her voice filled with pride. Keanu walked over, his smile matching hers. "Lucas. That's a strong name." Anna nodded, brushing a fingertip along her son's cheek. "I want him to grow up knowing that no matter how hard life gets, there's always a reason to keep going." Keanu pulled up a chair beside her. "He's lucky to have a mom like you. Someone who's brave, resilient, and full of love." Anna glanced at him, her eyes glistening. "I wasn't sure I could do this, you know. There were so many nights when I thought about giving up. But then you came along." Keanu shook his head gently. "You were always capable, Anna. You just needed a reminder of your own strength." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, the weight of everything they'd been through settling around them like a shared secret. Then, Anna spoke again, her voice firmer this time. "I want to be the kind of person who helps others, the way you've helped me. I don't know how yet, but I want to pay it forward." Keanu's smile widened. "You already are. Lucas will grow up seeing your kindness and strength. That's the greatest way to pass it on." As the morning light grew brighter, Anna felt something she hadn't in years, a sense of belonging, of possibility. Her journey wasn't over, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid of what lay ahead. In the weeks following Lucas's birth, Anna settled into her new life with a sense of calm she had never known before. Her small apartment, though modest, felt like a haven, filled with the gentle coos of her newborn and the comforting routine of caring for him. The challenges of motherhood were undeniable: sleepless nights, endless feedings, and the constant worry that she wasn't doing enough, but they were accompanied by an overwhelming love that made every struggle worth it. Keanu continued to check in regularly, often stopping by with groceries or simply to hold Lucas while Anna took a much-needed break. His visits had become a source of stability for her, a reminder that she wasn't facing this new chapter alone. One afternoon, as Lucas napped in his crib, Anna invited Keanu to sit with her in the living room. The air was filled with the scent of freshly brewed tea, and the sunlight streaming through the window bathed the room in a warm glow. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, Anna began, her voice contemplative. About how much my life has changed in such a short time. Keanu set his cup down and leaned forward slightly, listening intently. And how do you feel about it? Anna smiled faintly, her gaze drifting to the crib where Lucas slept. Grateful, she said. But also, unsure. I want to do more than just get by. I want to create a life that Lucas can be proud of. A life I can be proud of. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. You've already taken the hardest steps, Anna. You've faced your fears, found strength in the darkest moments, and built a foundation for yourself and Lucas. Now, it's about continuing to grow. Anna hesitated before speaking again. You've helped me so much, Keanu. More than anyone ever has. But I don't want to rely on you forever. I want to stand on my own 2 feet. Keanu smiled warmly. That's the goal, isn't it? To help someone find their footing, not to carry them. And you're already standing, Anna. I can see it. His words filled her with a quiet determination. Over the following weeks, Anna began to take small but meaningful steps toward rebuilding her career. Inspired by the design opportunity offered by one of the cafe's customers, she started working on freelance projects during Lucas's naps. Her artistic talent, once buried under years of hardship, began to shine through. Keanu supported her in any way he could, from watching Lucas while she sketched to connecting her with people in his network who could mentor her. But he also gave her the space to find her own way, knowing that her journey was hers to navigate. One evening, as Anna was packing up her work to meet a client for the first time, she paused to reflect on how far she had come. The woman who once doubted her ability to survive was now building a future, not just for herself, but for her son. Later that night, after her meeting, Anna returned home to find Keanu sitting on the couch with Lucas nestled in his arms. The sight made her heart swell. Did he behave for you? Anna asked, setting her bag down. Keanu chuckled. He's a natural charmer. Definitely gets that from his mom. Anna laughed softly, but her expression soon turned serious. Keanu, I've been meaning to say this. I don't think I can ever fully repay you for everything you've done. But I hope you know how much it's meant to me. Keanu looked at her, his gaze steady. You've already repaid me, Anna. Seeing you find your strength, your purpose, that's more than enough. Anna blinked back tears, overwhelmed by his sincerity. I'm going to keep going, she said firmly. For Lucas. For myself. And because I want to show people that even when life feels impossible, it can still surprise you in the best ways. Keanu smiled, his heart swelling with pride. You already are. In that quiet moment, surrounded by warmth and hope, Anna realized that the life she had once feared was now something she looked forward to. Her story wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about growth, resilience, and the power of human connection. Months turned into a year, and Anna's life transformed in ways she once thought impossible. Lucas had grown into a lively, curious toddler, filling their small apartment with laughter and joy. Anna's freelance design work had blossomed into a steady stream of projects, and her talent had begun to gain recognition. With each new milestone, she felt a growing sense of accomplishment and pride. Keanu's presence in her life had remained constant, but as Anna found her footing, his role shifted. He no longer needed to provide her with assistance, instead, he became a cherished friend and mentor. Their bond, built on trust and mutual respect, had become a cornerstone of her new life. One sunny afternoon, Anna stood in a small gallery downtown, surrounded by her artwork. It was her first exhibition, and the room buzzed with energy as visitors admired her pieces. She glanced around, taking in the sight of her dreams coming to fruition. A part of her still couldn't believe she had made it here. Keanu arrived quietly, as he always did, blending into the crowd before making his way to her. When she spotted him, her face lit up with a smile. "Congratulations," he said, his voice filled with pride. "This is incredible, Anna." Anna laughed softly, still marveling at how far she had come. "I couldn't have done this without you." Keanu shook his head. "You did this. I just gave you a little push. The rest was all you." As the evening went on, Anna watched Lucas toddle around the gallery, his laughter echoing through the space. The sight filled her with a deep sense of fulfillment. She had built this life, brick by brick, moment by moment. And she had done it not just for Lucas but for herself. As the night drew to a close, Anna found herself standing beside Keanu, watching the last of the guests leave. She turned to him, her heart full. "Thank you," she said simply. Keanu smiled. "You've thanked me enough, Anna. Now, go and show the world what you're capable of." She nodded, feeling a quiet confidence take root within her. Her journey wasn't over, but for the first time, she welcomed the uncertainty of the future with open arms. If this story touched your heart, imagine the many more inspiring tales we can share together. Subscribe to our channel for heartfelt stories, uplifting journeys, and moments that stay with you. Don't miss out, hit that subscribe button and join our growing community today. Let's create something beautiful together.